Welcome to the WDW Fan Zone show. I am Stuart, joined by Kurt, Jess, Darlene, and the Ferguson too. Well, one right now. Lottie will be joining us very shortly. And there she is.
There she is.
You know, I've got to hand it to Lottie. No matter where you are, what you're doing, whenever you're on the show, you always manage to just come right in as if you had nothing going on the rest of the day. You turn everything else off. And
Welcome.
yeah, so there's Lottie. We were hoping to have your kids on tonight.
Oh no, they are loud and obnoxious tonight.
More so than me.
Yeah.
Well, you've got wonderful daughters.
You do. They're beautiful.
All right, so we're all here except for John. John, unfortunately, had a rough day at the office, so he will not be here tonight. Hopefully, he'll be back with us not next week, later this week when we do our regular show. The reason we're doing the show tonight is because there were technical difficulties. We couldn't get the show up on Thursday night when we normally record. So here we are. Tonight's topic will be how things might be different if Walt, Roy O, or Roy E were still around. And we'll get into that in a little bit because we've got a lot of news. And Jess, take it away with all the latest and greatest Walt Disney World news.
Hey there, folks. Here's the news for the week. All right, so the issue we talked about last week with not being able to make a lightning lane selection until after 2 p.m. when you've checked into your next park has now been resolved. They will allow you to make lightning lane reservations at any park throughout the day, even if you have a reservation as an annual pass holder at a different park. Yay! All right, so Magic Kingdom Festival of the Fantasy Parade is now only one showtime, and that is just at 3 p.m. If you ever want to see a show at any of the parks, please make sure to check the times to get to the show early enough in case seats are filling up quickly. Epcot's Flower and Garden Festival will run from February 28th through May 27th. It's a little earlier this year that it's ending. It will feature food, drinks, new merchandise, 6 new topiaries, and the Garden Rocks concert series is returning with some new music. After hours dates have been added. Magic Kingdom has dates from April 22nd to June 27th. Epcot has dates from April 25th to July 18th. Hollywood Studios from May 22 to August 29, and they go on sale January 31st. There are special DVC and annual pass holder prices too for those dates. For Magic Kingdom After Hours, Tron is using a standby queue with no virtual queue. Very exciting. And the Country Bear Jamboree will close on Saturday. Friday is the last day. Big River Grill at Boardwalk is now closed. No news on what will be replacing it. And many Disney World restaurants have added Valentine's themed snacks, so check out those menus. All right, I have the park hours for the next few days, Tuesday through Thursday. Magic Kingdom, 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. Epcot and Hollywood Studios, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. And Animal Kingdom from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. Typhoon Lagoon is closed. Blizzard Beach, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Boardwalk, 6:30 a.m. to 10 p.m. And Disney Springs from 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. It will be partly cloudy for most of the week with highs in the 80s. So bring your sunscreen and always prepare for rain. And I guess that's all I have for today.
All right, thank you, Jess. Oh, Jess, before you go, I had a question for you. My brother actually has a client who's going to Disney World in 2 or 3 weeks with a 2-year-old.
Oh.
Any suggestion or advice you would give?
Well,
in,
if he
in
cannot,
today's Disney World?
if he cannot bring a stroller, I would rent one at the parks. They are amazing, especially my 2-year-old will sleep in the stroller. I don't know. And then always bring snacks because you never know when your kid just has a meltdown. You can just throw a snack at them. But and then I'll just be very flexible. Leave time for them to just kind of like walk around. Like Magic Kingdom in the front has those little like grassy patches. Have time for them to just kind of be themselves and roam. But wherever you go, there you are. You don't expect it to be just magical the whole time. It's still, your kids still should be on their schedule. So plan for naps, plan for feeding times, and plan ahead.
Now, would you suggest that being their first time, that they should get Genie Plus, especially for the Magic Kingdom?
When are they coming?
2 or 3 weeks from now. It will not be during President's Weekend.
Now that's a tricky thing, because a 2-year-old wouldn't want to go on rides like, any roller coasters or anything like that, or any throw rides. So, I mean, I think you can navigate through
1 second.
to
I have a
rides.
visitor at the door. He opened the door. Oh my God.
I think you can navigate through to rides that would not have a long line throughout the day, especially in this time of year. But if they're really worried about that and they want to do a lot of things, then I do recommend Genie Plus.
Okay.
But again, like I just don't think if it's 2 adults and a 2-year-old, I don't think it's necessary. But
Yeah. Okay. No,
why
I
spend all
appreciate
that money if they're not even going to remember it? No,
Yeah.
you will remember it, and you'll have, the memories and stuff like that. But like, if a kid is fine just walking around and playing with the bubble wand by a restaurant when you're trying to eat. That happened to us the other day. We're trying to eat and there's a kid with a bubble wand just blowing right on us, right on our, but
This is what pushed
Anyway.
my door open now.
Oh.
This big monster.
Hi, Bernie.
Look at the little monster.
Aw.
All right. Thank you, Jess.
Yeah, no problem.
All
Everyone,
right. Have a
see
great
you
rest
real
of the
soon.
week, and we'll see you Thursday night. Next
See you
show.
Thursday night. Yes.
All right.
All right.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye, Jess.
And then there were 4. All right. Lottie, did you agree with everything Jess said, or would you do anything differently? Because I know your kids are a little older now.
Yeah, the only thing I would do differently is I would not rent the stroller at the park. I always do third-party strollers because they're more comfortable and they've got storage and drink holders.
And they're a fraction of the price.
Yes, they're cheaper.
Yeah. Disney used to be very affordable. I'm going back many, many, many years ago when strollers were affordable, but it just made sense to rent the stroller at Disney. But now I think they've just gotten way too expensive for most people. Although if you can afford the VIP tours, you probably can afford renting strollers.
This is true.
Yeah. Okay. I forgot the reason why this came up in a conversation with one of my neighbors, and it just gave me the idea to do this as a topic for the show, good, bad, or otherwise. There have been a lot of changes to Disney, especially since the world events of a few years ago from 2020. And the reason I'm not saying what those world events were is because I want the show to go up on time.
Probably a good idea.
Yeah, so there have been a lot of change. I think a lot of the changes at Disney were accelerated because of what happened in 2020. And I don't know if it was for the good, bad, otherwise, but one of the founders, I'll call them, of Disney, being Walt, Roy E. or Roy O. were around. How different do you think the parks would be? And we'll go, or Disney property would be. And we're not going to go into any one park in particular or in any one direction in particular. Just we'll give our thoughts on certain things as we go round and round. Is there anything that anybody wants to start off with here? As you can see, we're very well organized.
How far back do we want to go thinking about this? So, because they became, what was it, back in the late 50s, early 60s when they became.
Well, I think we want to look at it from
stock market.
where Disney is today and where we think it might be if Walt, Roy O, or Roy E were still around? Like, what do you think they would have done? What they wouldn't have done?
Well, now it's all about the merchandise. It's all about the bottom line. It's all about making the stock,
Yeah, I agree.
shareholders happy.
Hmm.
Walt wanted to make the families happy.
Yeah, I think making money is very important, but I think there's a fine line now between your, making money and greed. And I think, and
Right.
this is not just with Disney. You're seeing this across all businesses. I think what happened in 2020 is caused a lot of companies to get very greedy and take advantage of the situation to make more profit upon profit. And I'm not saying that every company's profitable. We sure as heck know Disney's got some not franchise. Some of their brands are not doing very well.
We were complaining about this pre-COVID, pre-C word,
Yeah,
about the prices getting too high.
yeah, right. And that's why I said before. I think 2020 accelerated everything.
It's worse now than it was, but we were complaining about this back then.
Right. It was heading in this direction.
Correct. Anyone else?
Yeah, I think Walt's original idea for the park around families and adults and kids being able to have fun and enjoy themselves together. The waters have been muddied a little bit with capitalism.
Right.
I someone sent me a video today. It was a reel of a little kid, probably somewhere between one and two, maybe a little over two, and they put a GoPro camera on the kid and captured their first reactions to being at Disney World, and just the giggles and the smiles and the laughter and reaching out for the princess and enjoying the rides.
Yeah.
That kid was having a good time, and
And
I
that's
just
what it's
think
all
it's sad.
about.
Right, and but I just think it's sad that not all kids get to experience that. There's so many kids who will never be able to afford a visit to a Disney park.
Yeah, it's a shame. Even going back when my kids were little, I think there was a segment of the population that could not afford it then. But now, I think it's only a segment of the population, a small segment of the population that can afford it comfortably. It's, I don't know if I were not living down here, I don't know if as a matter of fact, I do know I would not be able to afford to come to Disney every year. It might have to be every 5 years. And if I was still working, that'd be different, then maybe every couple of years, but I'm not. So, and everybody's situation is different. But you've got a family, let's say a typical family of 4 or 5. Why they can afford it? A middle class family of 4 or 5.
It's not what it used to be.
No, it's not.
And it's something. If I didn't continue to get a raise, my wife didn't continue to get a raise. If we didn't have DVC when we bought DVC, we bought DVC at $92 a point. It's over 200 now. It's insane. So even we bought in 2007. What is it? 2024. We're double our dues pays, but we're still getting a room for that price. We're getting a room that normally would be like $900 a night.
Correct.
So, would Walt want that? Probably not.
Yeah.
Roy was more about the bottom line, though.
He was.
So Roy E.
Yeah.
I don't think
Roy was like
Roy
in between Roy O and Walt with what he.
Yeah, but Roy O was. I don't want to say he was looked down upon, but he wasn't. he wasn't going to run the company. We'll just leave it at that. He never was going to run
Right.
the company. He never
Roy
was.
O was the accountant of the company. He was the
Right.
fiscally
I meant Roy
responsible.
E.
Yeah. So,
Right. Roy E. It just wasn't going to happen. Roy O. Yeah, Roy O. was able to run the company. Unfortunately, he also died of a stroke
Yeah.
right after the park opened.
Right. And if you're wondering why we're mentioning this, is because I think it's important before we get into the topic completely to bring this up. Because this did have an effect on where Disney came from and where it went going forward and where it is now. And it's a shame that there were no other family members that either wanted to or could or were allowed to take I don't want to say take claim, but take a stake in the company to run it at some point in the future after, the founding fathers of Disney, were no longer with us. But now you see in the parks, it's Genie Plus. It's another revenue stream that was not there just a few years ago. It's the price increases. We mentioned the strollers earlier. It's just ridiculous. Things that should be made available to the masses at an affordable price is not. And yes, I know they have to make money. But if you keep your guests happy, they're more likely to walk into one of their shops along Main Street or, somewhere else on property and purchase things. And I think, you're hoping that it'll be one of those spontaneous purchases, but I think you're seeing less and less of that in the last couple of years because people just can't afford it anymore. The people who, I forgot the term, for everybody that went on vacation with their stimulus money. I know there's a term for it. For some reason, it's just not registering. Those vacations, for the most part, are over. Now what? Now you're going after the rich and famous, it seems.
The stimulus money. Yeah, the stimulus.
Yeah,
What was that called? Where they were trying to get out?
Yeah, it was something vacation something. There was a name for it. I just can't think of it right now.
I know they all just wanted to get out. Everybody wanted to get out.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Darlene?
I agree with everything you guys are saying. I mean, I think Walt would be very disappointed with the way things are looking. I don't think he would like what is happening. I mean, he wanted change, yes. He wanted things to stay, new for everyone to enjoy it. And I think now with like what everybody is saying, that when I was going through my mind, the past couple days when I knew about this, it was the parks aren't as clean as they used to be.
Mm-hmm.
People, staff, cast members sometimes can't handle the stress of the job.
Yeah, the training's not the same.
Right.
Well, and along with that all costs money. Walt would take the cut and pay. He didn't care about it.
Yeah.
He didn't know.
I mean, I just had a friend stay at the beach club, and they asked her, "Is it okay if we come in 4 days and do a change through?" She's like, "Oh yeah, sure, no problem." They never showed up.
Yeah.
Mm.
I didn't mean for this to turn into a negative show, but
Right.
we have to bring these things up to get to the points we're going to need to make about the park. So,
Correct. So, I think there would be a lot. I think things would be a lot more happier if they were still around, but they're not. So we need to we've all adjusted to a lot of the things that are happening. Um, like do you think the walls in Epcot would still be up? I don't. I
No,
think that would have been worked on a lot faster.
yeah, I think the time, not well, the timeline and the timing of when they did things and how they did the projects would be the way it used to be. Everything would be done overnight or through the night,
Hmm.
with minimal obstruction to guests during the day. Yeah, you might see walls there for a few months, a year maybe, if that, depending on how big the project was. But it would have gotten done.
Hmm.
Universal, yeah, they're building Epic Universe now. They're getting their projects done. And from people I know, because I don't go to that park, but people I know that have been going to Universal have said that, yeah, things moved along in a progressive, in a natural progression, as if there weren't, nothing that occurred in 2020, where you didn't see that at Disney. It clearly affected them. I mean, it affected so many people, but it clearly affected how they did things more than others for some reason
Mm.
in the theme park industry in Florida. But um,
Yeah, but
you know,
at the same time, you know, I think Walt's sense of imagination and his ability to push the envelope on what was happening in movies and in theme parks at the time, he would just be overjoyed with the technology that we have available today. I mean, Rise of the Resistance, that has got to be beyond whatever he imagined
yep,
uh, for anything. I mean, it is a completely immersive experience. It's three ride
absolutely.
system. It's just amazing. Um, yeah, and we've gone from Matterhorn bobsleds to Slinky Dog Dash and Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind. Like that, I don't even know if any of that stuff would have even been a thought for him because the technology wasn't available, but it is
Sure.
now.
Yeah. I don't know if it would have been a thought for him, but I think if he were around as things progress with technology, I think he would have embraced it and been at the
Mhm.
Yes.
forefront of it. And I think some of the things that we're missing without Walt, especially Walt in the parks, are his determination, which you brought up, Lottie. It's not, if he wanted something, it's not like, well, can it be done? It's like, you're going to do it, find a way.
Correct.
There,
Mhm.
there was
That's who it
no, you
was.
couldn't say no to him. If he said, this is what I want this animatronic to do X, Y, and Z, the Imagineers found a way to do X, Y, and Z.
Look at back
Yeah.
in the day, he brought live deer into the studio.
Yeah.
Well, that was for modeling. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It
I mean,
basically, a compliment for Walt was when he'd say, "That'll work. That'll work." Okay.
yeah.
Walt likes my
Yeah.
job, likes what I've designed.
Yeah.
Well, this dog is driving me crazy tonight, in and out of my office. In or out. In or out.
Mine is snoring, so
Oh,
sorry.
Bruni. Mine's locked out. I
I
don't know.
love it snoring.
My corgi can't
Me
reach the
too.
handle. I don't know what they're worried. I didn't close the door.
Walk away. Sorry, guys. Didn't mean to cause a distraction, or especially for those who are listening to this and not seeing.
um, I think we would have had a lot of changes over the years with any three of them,
Mm-hmm.
for the better of the families.
Yeah, I think things would have progressed further at this point than they have.
Hmm.
I don't think, I don't think, well, you know what? I don't know that they would have purchased the Star Wars brand
Mm.
or the Marvel
Oh
brand.
yeah.
I don't know if that Walt would have gotten, or even well, especially Roy, uh, would have invested in something like that.
Hmm.
I think it would have been a scaled down the movie. Definitely, the movies would be there, and I think they'd probably be better. And I think part of the problem today is they're relying heavily. And if I'm wrong, I hope somebody corrects me out there. But I think they're relying too heavily on AI for their movies. I think they need to, and that's the problem with technology too. I see it with my kids. I see it with others' kids. I see it with the younger generation, even kids younger than my kids are adults. Um, the communication has changed between one kid to another kid now. Everything is on a cell phone or an iPad.
Mm-hmm.
There's no interpersonal communication, and I don't know what's going on in the schools, but it just seems we're not allowing kids to grow up using the imaginations that they have, that they should be utilizing. It's just something that's like the computer will do it for me.
They don't have to think anymore.
Right. And that's what's happening with these scripts for these movies. It's like nobody's thinking. Where's the imagination?
Mm.
And I think that's a big problem too. And I don't think Walt would have stood for something. I think he would embrace AI, but in a different way. And
Where's part of the problem with AI is it just doesn't have the creativity yet of a human.
No, and it'll be scary when it gets there because you're talking Terminator.
Skynet.
I mean, I have heard horror stories where they have had to turn off. There were 2 robots that they built and they put AI in them, and they basically had to turn them off because they created their own language and were talking to each other in their own language. Like, okay, time to turn you 2 off.
Yeah, it's crazy. We can't see that far into the future, but we might have created our own destruction if we don't kill each other first.
Well,
Oh.
I don't even think park tickets probably wouldn't have gone up as much as they did over the years.
that's my biggest complaint is they jumped too much.
Yeah, right. It's not that they've gone up; it's they've jumped too much. The tier pricing by season and event and when I don't know if that would have been around either. I know Major League Baseball was doing that for many years, even before they started doing it at Disney. But they're not doing it to the extent that Disney's done it. And the other parks have done that also. One follows the other. You raise your prices, we'll raise ours.
Right.
And the only way it's going to stop is if people don't come. But that's not the point of the show. The point of the show is we want the people to come, but we want them to have the best experience they can have. And would that experience be different today if Walt or either Roy were around? And you know what? I think if Walt had lived another 10, 15 years, I think Epcot would have been built the way he wanted it built.
Yes, I think so too.
Mhm.
I don't know if that would have been a good thing. I think they were starting to realize that wasn't going to work because you can't design a city and tell the people this is how it's going to be and not give them a vote. And he wanted to have control over what was going to be happening there. So I don't know if that City of Tomorrow was ever really going to happen.
Well, that goes back to what I said before. You couldn't say no to Walt. If he would just tell you, find a way.
Well, the way you'd have to do it almost is no one would be allowed to own anything there. It would have to be rent only. Even then, though.
But there were contingency plans in place. Not contingency. There were plans in place. Like if somebody worked there and retired, because you could only live there if you worked there. So if you retired, there were plans in place for people like that, or if they were let go from their job, or they quit, to move them someplace else. There were plans there for all that.
I still don't know if it would have worked.
Yeah, well, yeah, I agree with you. We don't know if it would have worked, but I don't think Walt would have taken no for an answer. But you know what? We don't know that either.
things change. Things were changing even when he was alive. Things were changing.
Yep.
I mean, there were things. There's a reason we got the Country Bear Jamboree. It's because they shut down that ski resort where the Country Bear Jamboree was supposed to go.
That's very true. That was
So
supposed to be in a
things
resort.
changed, and he was okay. It's going to happen. That, you know what? It was an idea. It didn't work. Move on. That was kind of his attitude on stuff.
Well, yeah, and his attitude also was that everything would always be changing. That they would never stop building new and out with the old, in with the new, and we're still seeing that today, but not at the same pace, and not, and some things like Rise of the Resistance. I mean, my God, what an awesome attraction that is. That you're right. A lot of you had mentioned that before, and you're right. We don't know if Walt would have thought of that, or if one of the Imagineers would have come to him or Roy and said, "Hey, I've got this great idea for Toy Story. Toy Story Midway Mania, and make it out of Legos." No, that was Soaring.
Even right now, what Walt would have followed through on is things like going through Batu. You were supposed to have more interaction with Batu because of these lovely little doohickeys right here. Okay.
Yeah.
So you got your phone. You can walk by someone. If you got your Bluetooth on, it's supposed to connect up with the other person. No, I didn't stay in the resort that they had there. I think it was a little more interactive like that when you stayed in the resort. I'm not 100% sure. Somehow people knew you were on a mission or something. I don't remember how it worked. But they made some promises with that land that it just didn't turn out. And I think if Walt were here, Walt would have figured out a way for it to work better.
Oh, and it would have been fixed immediately, just like the Yeti would have been fixed immediately.
Oh, the Yeti would have been fixed by now.
Yes, it would have been fixed by now. Yeah.
They have all these excuses, but the simple fact is they don't want to shut it down. It'll take too long to fix. Just fix it.
And something Walt wanted that, thank God, people talked him out of, he wanted live animals in the Jungle Cruise.
Yeah, but the live animals, what do they do in Kilimanjaro Safari? They sleep.
Could you imagine a hippopotamus sticking
Oh, yeah.
out of the water?
That wouldn't have worked very well either.
Yeah, that would not. Yeah, I don't know if you would have been able to ride that at night.
No.
Oh, God.
We would all be capsized like the monkeys.
Yeah. Oh God. Could you see the monkeys jumping on the boat?
If you could justify to him why it wasn't a good idea, he would accept it.
Yeah. Yeah. But think about the success the Sherman Brothers had under Walt.
Right.
What if Walt died 10 years earlier? Would they have been allowed to do or create what they were able to create? I mean,
right.
They were a lot to do with Epcot too. If you look at the original songs, there were a lot of Sherman Brothers songs.
Yes, there were.
Yeah. It's, you look at the Sherman Brothers, you look at people like Joe Rohde, and I know I'm leaving out a lot of people here, and a lot of people in between and beyond, and the creativity they had and were allowed to do and were pushed to do to get things to what became Walt Disney World. You don't have it to that extent. And now, they hire people for the project. The project's over. Okay, bye. See ya. They're not cultivating from within like they used to.
But it's always been that way since Disney World opened. It was, I don't have another project for you. We have to let you go.
Yeah.
So I have a project, but you're going to Japan. Okay, I have another project. Now you're going to Hong Kong.
Yep.
And now there's another project, but that one's done now too. If you're working on, they can't have everyone all working at the same time if there's not enough projects. So if you're working in Japan, they still have to have people working over here at Walt Disney World working on a project. But you get to a point of where you can't have all those people working.
One of the biggest complaints that we hear is the lack of new attractions at Walt Disney World and even Disneyland, because everything's been going overseas. Well, the reason it's been going overseas is they're getting private funding
Yeah.
Disney doesn't own those parks, completely. There's private stakes there for, so the money's coming from other sources, not from Disney, and that's a problem here. I think if Disney's other properties were doing as well as the parks, I think you'd see a big difference. I do believe Disney would still have a big stake in television. I think they'd have a big stake in the streaming industry, but
Oh,
I
yes.
think they would. I think they would approach TV differently today than Disney is approaching it. And that's affecting the parks too, because they're holding on, like the Disney Channel. Nobody watches it anymore because you can go to if you have Disney Plus, everything's there. Why go to the Disney Channel? And so many people are cutting the cord, which means they're stopping their cable services to go to streaming services, while regional sports channels and local channels are trying to charge these cable companies and even the streaming services that carry live TV a fortune of money, and not as many people are watching it today as they used to. The younger generations are all watching videos on YouTube and going to Disney Plus and Netflix, and it's on demand pretty
Mhm.
much. The only thing that people watch live are sports events, and I want to mention in pro wrestling. Let's go AEW. Just wanted to throw that
Okay.
in there.
Again, part of the problem is just the simple fact that we're here in the United States.
Mhm.
Again, a one-day ticket here to go to Walt Disney World is between $109 and $159, depending on the day, up to $200 we know for a fact,
Mhm.
over the winter break. Okay.
We
Do you guys
do.
know how much it costs for a one-day ticket in 2024 to go to Tokyo Disneyland? Take a wild guess.
In US dollars or
In US dollars.
$49.
Close. $55 per ticket to go for an adult ticket. It says a Disneyland ticket start at about $55 US based on the current exchange.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't begrudge Disney for trying to make as much money as they can. I think they could have gone about it different ways, but we're not going to get into that today. I think what we're seeing in the parks today, though, it's like, Darlene, you mentioned the cleanliness of the parks. Walt wouldn't have stood for what's going on today.
Oh no.
There wouldn't be a piece of paper or a shred of paper on the ground
Mhm.
if Walt were around. The cast members would definitely be trained better, and you know what? If they didn't treat the guests the way they should, they'd be out of a job. The
Mhm.
guests came first.
Again, that's a product of what happened in 2020, because the training
No,
that
that
was still
stopped. No,
stronger.
that was changing before
Before
2020.
that.
Not that much. So the
No,
training
oh,
the training is not nearly what it used to be.
absolutely.
They did
I
get to
agree.
the point where, especially once 2020 hit, they had to
Mhm.
change a lot of their thought process of how they were training people, because they needed people there because they had more guests. I mean, there's a reason they limited where the guests could come and where they didn't have to go. They
Yeah.
still aren't at maximum capacity of how many
Yep.
people they need to hire.
They
I don't want I don't want to put that all on Walt not being around, because a lot of it is as times change,
Correct.
we have a whole lot of folks that have a huge sense of entitlement, and their sense of entitlement includes throwing trash on the floor, even though there's a trash can 30 steps away. I mean,
Mhm.
Yes.
people aren't teaching their kids to respect other people's property, let alone they're not respecting their own property.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Right.
even though we have some changes in how folks were trained and what cast members are or are not doing, even in the treatment of cast members, I've seen some
Correct.
guests say some things to cast members that just completely uncalled for.
I agree with you, but I think they're tolerating some of the bad guests too much. I think, if you're behaving badly in the parks, kick them out. Don't put
Oh,
up
I
with
agree.
it.
I agree completely.
Don't
I
take
agree
it.
as
Kick
well.
them out. Get security, kick them out. And in many cases they do, but in some cases the louder they scream, the more the guest gets what they want because the cast members don't know how to handle it. Now, I'm not saying it's the cast members' fault, not by no means. I think the tolerance level that from above that the cast members have to put up with is too much. I don't think they should have to put up with as much as they do. I think it works both ways. You need cast members that are trained properly in their position. So when somebody asks them a question like, "What time is the parade?" they know, and not say, let me find out. I don't like the fact that I go to the parks now and you see 2 or 3 cast members on their phones or they're talking to other cast
Standing
members.
around. Yes.
That's not what they're there for.
Exactly.
And for everyone I see like that, there were, several that are not doing that. They were doing their job.
That's what I mean about the training. Pre 2020, I asked someone a question. He went over and asked somebody else, and they were talking to each other, just basically they were talking, explaining back and forth. Yeah, it got moved yesterday, and the manager came out and thought they were just talking, didn't realize they were just talking to me. And I had to go over and say, look, they were actually helping me, just trying to figure out where this goes. And she goes, I'm sorry, I've been talking to them all day that they need to separate because they've been standing around doing exactly what cast members are doing now. It was 2 kids from, whatever pavilion we were in, like Norway, whatever it was. But now they are just standing around all talking with their manager. They're all just standing there in one corner. You have a question, you can't find something, and there are times you can't get the help you usually get.
To Lottie's point, that's part of the generation self-entitlement too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. But yeah, and the same thing with what Lottie was saying. Hey, I paid $159 for this ticket. Uh-oh, my trash fell on the ground. Well, they have people that are going to pick it up. They should be picking it up, not me.
Yeah.
That's
Why would I have
entitled.
to do
No. You can bend over and pick. My old bad back can bend over and pick up a wrapper that falls on the ground. I paid $159 for this ticket. I want it to look good. I want my park to look good.
Yep.
Yeah. It's, I think that part of the problem is with the parks is the fact that they're catering to a higher class or a richer class of people now. So you're going to get more of that self-entitlement there. What do you mean I have to wait 20 minutes longer? I have Genie Plus. I should be able to get right on the ride. It's the time I'm supposed to be here. Why can't I get on right now? How about the poor people that paid $150 to get into the park that have to wait while all these droves of people are going in ahead of them? They've already waited over an hour to get onto that ride, and they've got to wait longer because everybody who has Genie Plus decided to show up at the same time.
Right.
And they're letting all the Genie Plus people in first because they know they're going to scream if they don't let them in first because they've paid extra. They created a monster with Genie Plus.
We should have just kept it to the fast passes, 3 a day, and that's it.
The fast passes were a broken system. They shouldn't have expanded the fast passes as far as they did. Again, we've had this conversation several times.
Yes, we have.
Walk in the door, get your fast pass for whatever, then you're more likely to be able to get in again. If you do limit it to 3, or 3 a day, and once your one is done, you can go later on and get it. Once those 3 are done, you can get another one for somewhere else. That was how the system was actually working, but you still had people complaining too much about that. If you did that now, even if you're having to pay for it, the problem was you would get people that would book days 60 days out, even though they were only really going to be there. They booked days on the weekend. They have 2 separate bookings at 2 separate resorts. They would start booking on Friday for the resort. They were at Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and book everything through the week that when they got there on Monday. And then once they got all that booked, they would cancel the Friday through Sunday. And even when they did you're going to lose those reservations. You would only lose those reservations.
Mhm.
They didn't. Yeah, it happened, Lottie. Believe it or not. So that's how people were playing the system, because on some of these some of the Facebook groups, people were like, "Why don't you just book a couple days early and then you can't get them?" Because if you tried to come in on Monday, you never got any of your attractions you wanted to get. Even Sunday was hard to get attractions. So, and that was the problem, which is why it had to be done the day of your trip, not 60 days out. Don't give people privilege because
Mhm.
you are staying on site. You want to give them a privilege? Do what they're doing right now with the extra magic hours at night for people that are staying at X resort or something.
Okay,
That's
so if
fine.
Walt or Roy O were around now,
Mhm.
how do you think they would be handling the lines? Would there be a Genie Plus? Would there not be a Genie Plus? Would there be a Fast Pass? How do you think they would have handled it?
I don't think there'd be a Genie Plus.
Oh, I definitely don't think there'd be a Genie Plus.
I don't.
I,
Yeah, I don't think there'd be a Genie Plus either. I do think that there would have been uh, more time spent on queues, so people
Mhm.
have an enjoyable time on
Mhm.
waiting. So that
Yep.
Exactly.
like Winnie the Pooh or Haunted Mansion or Dumbo, you know, that's the direction I think they would have gone.
Yeah, I agree. And you know what? I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If you're waiting in line, and I'm going to say 40 minutes just to throw a number out there, but you had something to keep you entertained online, I think
Mhm.
it would have gone by fast. You wouldn't have noticed how long you were waiting online. Whereas today, yeah, you know what? Some of the queues are wonderful, but when you're waiting an hour plus, in many cases, you don't care about how wonderful the queues are. You just want to get on that attraction and get on with your day. Um,
I don't think
You're
the
such a
queues would
patient
be as
anxiety.
dark either for walking through them. I
yeah.
think Walt and Roy, both Roys, would have made sure that pathways and that were easier to get
I,
through.
what do you? Which? What exactly are you talking about with that? Because some of that is ambiance related.
Well, ambiance is one thing, but to have like completely dark. I was
Are you talking
walking
about the parks at night?
no during the day, the interior
Where?
queues.
So, like
Where?
Pirates has to be dark. The queue of Pirates has to be dark.
Well,
Well,
how
Right.
about Nemo when you're
have
walking through to
you
get?
can have like ambiance light, like a dimmer light and stuff where it is. But I mean, you got to remember, you got guests that are coming that are older than all of us,
Mhm.
and
Well,
I
hardly
had
anybody's
I
older than
had a
me.
poor lady that tripped in Finding Nemo into me because she didn't know that the wall was right there on the turn.
Oh, God.
But she couldn't even see me do the turn.
She's got some cataract issues. It sounds like there.
But that
But
cue's
it needs to
very
be.
dark.
That queue
Even
needs to be dark because of the stuff that's shining on the walls. And
Mhm.
you start out, you go underwater. You are underwater. It can't be that bright because you are.
Mm,
mm, I don't know.
I
I
think
don't
they
find it
could
that
have
dark,
done
to be honest
something.
with you.
I think Darlene has a point there. I think they could have done something else with that queue.
There's a few
Give the
cues
appearance
that
of being underwater, but if you have things to look at as if you're underwater going through rather than just a wall,
would have been lit up like a light blue or something. But this is
or
just
maybe an interactive wall going
yeah,
through. So,
yeah.
you know,
I mean, look at going through Voyage of the Little Mermaid.
yeah.
It's a no Voyage.
I know the one you're talking about.
Yeah,
The one
you know,
in
the one in
New
Magic
Adventureland.
Kingdom. That one's all
Under
nice
the
and
sea.
scuttles there and everything, Um, I just,
Huh.
I think they would all make it, more enjoyable than what it is. We don't need to walk through a dark hallway.
You know what else I think we would have had there? and I think it depends on the attraction, Darlene. Let me get back to that for a second.
Yeah.
I think there are some things they could have done, and maybe it was budgetary reasons they didn't.
Oh, maybe.
Like Spaceship Earth. When you get to the end of Spaceship Earth, it just goes, there's nothing
You're
there
immediately
going
on.
down. And I know they did that for the interactive screens, but like, how many people care about this interactive screen?
Right.
Biggest complaint about Spaceship Earth is if you're there in the summertime. When you don't go because you guys stay out of the sun because it's 105.
Don't mess with my
When I
Brazilian
have to go.
friends. Don't mess with my Brazilian friends that go on that line.
Well, the Brazilian friends say the same thing. That queue is all outdoors. It's hot. They don't have any like tapestries over the top to try to keep the sun off of there.
Yeah.
So when you walk into it, you're just going on the attraction right away. But those are nice long queues for Soarin'. And when I do have to wait, I do play the trivia. It just hooks up to your phone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Something else that I thought of with the parks that I don't know if either Roy or Walt would have embraced the way Disney has, and Disney I think has done it for financial reasons. The use of our cell phones and technology in the parks. Instead of walking around and seeing what the Imagineers created, our heads are in the phone. What time's the
But
next attraction? How long a wait is it? When can we have lunch, dinner? Where can we make a reservation?
Those queues, I remember those queues, guys. There was nothing to them. They were just, there was nothing to look at. And you had angry people. You'd see a queue. How long's the line? Oh, it's about 30 minutes. An hour and a half later. Once you're in there, you can't get out. Those queues were horrible. So they started theming the queues, which was wonderful. However, even with the themed queues, if your queue's not moving, something has to keep your interest. If they can do the interaction like you can, which I open or Play Disney, here we go, let's play. Do the Play Disney while you're waiting in line. Wonderful. I was all about come on, get off your phone. But you get to a point, Stuart, we were in a line that was supposed to be a 45-minute line for 2 hours. It got to the point where we were all on our phones because we were bored, just not moving at all.
I'm not talking about the phones in the queue. That's why I said I think Disney's doing it for financial reasons. They want you to, yes, they're doing some wonderful things with my Disney experience and the Disney app. But they're trying to spread the crowds around the park. So then, it's really to know how many employees they need here, there, or someplace else.
Crowd control. Yep.
It's not right. It's all about crowd control rather than, yes, they're trying to spread the credit. They're not doing a very good job of it because not everybody uses the app.
Mm-hmm.
So is that their fault? I would say no, but they're trying to, instead of having the freedom of choosing where I want to go when, they're trying to control everybody like a robot. And it's for financial purposes with their crowd control, rather than let's make the guest experience the best we can. Let's do it for them. And I think the guests are missing out. And part of it is, the technology that we're all used to now. For those of us who grew up before computers were around, we know what life was like before. Our kids don't.
I know a lot of people complain because you have to have a park reservation when you're walking in the door. And again, I can see the locals being really upset about that. I get it. Again, if they're limited on the number of staff that they have. Now, granted, that means you have some staff members that are going to have to be trained on like 4 or 5 different attractions. You're going to have people working in different stores and stuff to where you're going to have to learn where does all this stuff go. But
and what's wrong with that? That's called cross training.
I agree. That's my point. I would rather have to tell them I plan on being at the Magic Kingdom on this day, so that they know. Okay, hey, we got 150,000 people coming into the park on this day. I'm slightly exaggerating. So, let's make sure we have the staff for that on that day. We got 30,000 people are going to be over here. There's only 10,000 that are saying they're coming over to this other park. Why do we have a full park there when they're all standing around twiddling their thumbs, talking to each other about send me home early? When the other park, now there's long lines, even for checking out. There's a reason why they do the mobile checkout.
Okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Go for it.
Disney's making a fortune of money at the parks. I mean, the billions. But they don't want to pay their employees anything, so they can't get people to work for them at the price they want to pay. And then if you want to look at it from another angle, you could say, well, nobody wants to work. They want to work for what they want to do, what they want to do. And if Disney's not going to pay them what they want to pay, they're just not going to work there. And, even though they need the job, they just don't want to work. They're getting money, they're getting unemployment. Why should they work for that?
They're working online. Or they're making TikTok videos.
Yeah, I know. A lot of people are doing that.
They're making Instagram videos. They're influencers.
Oh, well, that's another problem with the parks are the influencers.
And I had one next to me when I was down there for 1 day. I hear this woman talking next to me. And I turned around. I almost said something to her. And she's right there with her camera recording. I was like, okay, seriously. So, that was a little bit of overkill as far as I was concerned.
Always is.
It's I'm glad they took away selfie sticks.
But the point I was trying to make though is that Disney could hire more people. They could go, Universal's getting away from the reservations. Actually, Universal doesn't have reservations. I'm sorry. I know Disney's getting away from the reservations, but
they don't need them. Universal also has a sale going on for actually, it's perfect for you guys. You buy 1 day, you get 2 days free.
Yeah, I don't want to go there.
For Florida people.
Those parks just don't do anything for me. I'm not a Harry Potter fan, so it's like I don't need to go there.
And here's the thing, though. You go back to the late 90s. My wife and I took a trip over to, I don't know, some other park that wasn't Disney. And we literally walked in, and we had something we were supposed to pass out to people when we saw them going above and beyond. And we walked around for about 8 hours to pass these four out. Any help at all into a store? I'm like, what do you think this is? I'm like grabbing things, just making it. My wife's like, what are you talking about? Like, I have no idea what you would even use this for. And we're standing right next to two people that work there. So you think they come over and go, oh, well, it's this, trying to get the sale, or they're not getting the sale, but just, no, I'm listening to their story in the background, and they're like, yeah, I only took this job so that basically they were doing a deal with the high schools, stay in school half a day, work the half a day. They're like, I only took this job so I could get in here for free. And they're talking about that. They're literally talking about that on the floor. I'm watching managers yell at an employee on the floor with people walking around, guests are walking around, because you went over my head. That makes me look bad. I told you I would try to help you. And the girl's like, I can't make rent this month. I needed more hours. So when the higher up came in and asked the question, that was my answer. I really wish there were more hours available. I think that's how she worded it. And she goes, well, you made me look bad. And I'm like, that's poor. That's bad show. It was horrible show. And that was back in 98. And I'll be honest, we didn't return until 2016 because the show was that bad. I don't want Disney's show to get that bad.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I don't think it has, and I hope it never will. But I want to get back to the technology part with our phones. If Roy, and Walt were around, one of them, how do you think they'd be utilizing the phones for guests in the parks now? I think it'd be very different from the way it's being used now.
I don't know.
I think you'd
have more interactivity with things.
I think you'd be able to see the wait times for each attraction, but I don't think they would direct you to go from one part of the park to the other. I think they would allow you to do what you wanted. I don't think you'd have a reservation system, for entering the parks. I do think you'd have reservations for dining. That I absolutely believe you would have. And I think they would
think
make
that
sure that the parks were fully staffed every day, whether one person showed up or whether 100,000 showed up.
I think they would be
Mm.
using the technology, kind of like how they use the Magic Band Pluses, where with the Magic Band Plus, if you got next to a whatever the 100 or the 50-year things were, where all the
Mhm.
gold characters, where they would interact with it, I think that would be on your phone. I
Yeah.
think you could literally walk up there, and there could be something hidden on that wall, and you'd click a button on your phone, and it would start making noise or start interacting with you.
You know, I truly believe they would have taken advantage of the technology we have to enhance the guest experience for the guest rather than for the company to drive you to certain areas of the park. I think they would have given you the freedom of choice. Where yes, you still have, and don't get me
And
wrong, you still have the freedom of
mm,
choice, but Disney's trying to control where you go and when. And I don't think Walt or either Roy would do that.
No.
And I think
I
that's the
need
only
some data.
difference we would see. You know,
I need some
you
data.
might,
I wonder how many people are actually using, the service versus, those are that are not. Is there enough people using it to
Genie Plus,
oh, Genie
yeah?
Plus, yes.
it's
Is
sold
there
out
is there
over
enough?
winter break.
People, they've done a great job of convincing people, and you know, it's more the lines in the park. People are hearing on, and this is, everybody looks at social media. Oh my God, it was an hour and a half wait for this. There was a 3-hour wait for that. I've got to get Genie Plus when I go. Because if I don't get it, I'm never going to get on the attraction. You know what? They're probably right.
It was a record
Mm,
price. What was it, $39? And they like sold out that day.
Yeah.
It was incredibly expensive, and
Yeah.
they were selling out because
People
of
are
all the
paying.
lines.
right.
People are
Are
paying for it
people
because they think
actually
they have to, and in many cases
they're
they do.
paying for it? They're paying for it, but are they using, in a way that
Oh, I see. An
just
effective way, you
like you
mean?
said, Stuart, that is really having an effect on crowd control.
Correct.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't think Disney's mastered that yet. I think you're still seeing, if there's a long line of people waiting to get on Rise of the Resistance, and let's say it's an hour and 10-minute wait, and then all of a sudden there's an influx of people coming for Genie that have purchased Genie Plus coming through, they're going to let 20, 30, 40 of those people in first before they let more than 4 people in from the standby line.
Right.
And that's a big problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm.
they're punishing the people who didn't pay for Genie Plus, which has created this frenzy to purchase Genie Plus. And they're laughing all the way to the bank with money they're making on it.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
I don't know.
yeah, I know this is not a popular answer to Kurt, and I've mentioned this many times on the show. If they raise the prices higher and to include everybody and went back to Fast Pass or a working Fast Pass Plus, you wouldn't have the lines the way they are, or you just get rid of it and everybody has to wait online. There is no Genie Plus. That wouldn't work. I know that, but they're never going to get rid of Genie Plus as long as the Disney company owns Disney.
The monster's already been created, though.
Yeah.
You've got the entitled folks who go to the park on a pretty regular basis, that if Genie Plus isn't there, if they don't have a way to skip the line, then
It's like someone
the
mentioned to me, they've created a class system that did not exist
mm,
before Genie Plus in the parks. Look at all the VIP tours. You want to pay thousands of dollars, and I think you have to have, what is it, a minimum of 6 people? And that doesn't include the
It's
park
ridiculous.
admission. So
Was
they're
it
making
6?
thousands of dollars on these VIP tours, and who does that cater to?
The
folks that
1%.
got the cash for it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's not what the
And
parks were created for, but that's what they've become.
here's why you
Mm,
can't get rid of Genie Plus. I got a dividend last year with my Disney stock. I haven't had dividends since pre 2020. It just
so that
there's even though the parks are making money, Why are the parks making so much money right now? Genie Plus. They've got
So this
record
is your
revenue
is that what
coming
you're
in.
saying?
Disney Plus.
Yeah.
Or Genie Plus, sorry. Genie Plus. Disney Plus is sucking the money out. That's
But
why I haven't had a dividend. Genie Plus is why I actually got my dividend.
You
So
know,
they're like, look at how much money we're making. It's because of Genie Plus.
Darlene, I don't want to include this. I want Kurt and Lottie to answer this because we live down here. So when we go to the park, it's different. You know, we can go for 2-3 hours, leave, and if we don't get on something, we come back the next day. We go on
Exactly.
or the next time. But you guys come down once, twice a year, however many times. How has your experience been now, coming, you know, in, let's say 2023 to what it was 2019 and before? Is it better or worse? And I'm not talking about your enjoyment of the parks,
Different.
just the overall experience that, you know, of what Disney once was to what it has become.
It's different for all the reasons why we talked about. We've got all these influencers walking around now because they don't know how to work a regular job. All they know how to do is walk around, give us their information, and be an influencer. Yes, and take in their selfies. Okay, so that's different. It's different because there are some parks. I don't know about you, Lottie. Yes, when I go in the Magic Kingdom, we're using Genie Plus. If I walk in Animal Kingdom, Epcot, probably not, because there's not as many things that we need to do. However, we may have to use it, as crazy as it sounds, when we go to Disney Hollywood Studios, because of those attractions that are there. There's so few. If you don't use the Genie Plus, you're not going to get on the attractions you want to go on. So you're looking at, it was 15, then it was 20. I don't even know what it is today. Do we know today in the off season how much Genie Plus is?
I have no clue.
So there are some places where we'll go and pay for the Genie Plus, but depending on the day, we may or may not pay for it at another place.
You know, what a lot of people are doing now because of what, you know, Disney World used to be the #1 destination. I don't know if it still is. I don't believe it is, but it's still up there. I know that. But it used to be the #1 destination. Now people are doing vacation dupes. By that, I mean they're finding cheaper vacations. So they're going to a different theme park. It may not be Disney, but it's closer to home. It costs them less to get there. And it's much cheaper for their family of 4, 5, or however many they have.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, so they're
Yeah.
losing. That's everyone but the 1%ers that, you know, they're starting to lose. And I'm probably exaggerating that a bit, but you know, it's, you have a little kid watching Disney Plus and they see all these wonderful Disney things and they want to go to the parks. They know there's a theme park. They want to go there. The parents talk to them about it, but mommy and daddy can't afford it because they need to take a second mortgage out on their home now. That didn't used to be the case. You know, that's not something Walt or either Roy ever wanted. And even though, you know, yes, they're watching the bottom line, and you know what, I want Disney to make as much money as it can, but do it the right way. And I don't think we're gonna see
Definitely a way of not breaking the bank for every single person in this world.
Yeah, but you know what? That's what our society is becoming. Look at everyone. Airline tickets. Why are they so expensive? Why are all these flights being canceled? Just, you know, and I'm not talking about weather-related cancellations because there's mechanical trouble on the planes because they're not being fixed properly. That goes to staff that's trained properly to fix them. And it's across the board. Food prices. Every time you walk into a supermarket, prices are going up. Wherever you go, it's, you know, even look at cruise lines now. They're starting to nickel and dime their guests, but that's still a better value than a land vacation, which includes Disney World. You can go on a cruise for a lot less money and get more enjoyment out of it because you're getting fed. All your meals are, you know, yes, they do have other dining, but you can eat without paying extra. You can watch shows. If you gamble, you can go into the casino. That'll cost you money, but
there are several cruise lines. We're going back to the early 2000s when people were taking cruises that were Disney cruises. and they have always nickel-dimed you. They
Not to the extent they're doing now.
nail
though.
you on the drinks. They've always
Yeah.
nailed you on the drinks,
Yeah, but now
even with the regular drinks.
But Kurt, now they're putting things on ships, like who's Royal Caribbean. I think it's Icon of the Seas. They have this thing where you can, I don't know what they call it, where you can actually glide over the ship and around, and that's extra. That's an extra charge. That doesn't come with your cruise ship.
So it's like paying for an extra attraction to use another one.
Right,
Right.
right. That's what they're starting to do, nickel and diming. Things that used to be free. Some ships are starting for different food venues that they didn't charge before. They're starting to charge for it, so they're doing it too. It's not just Disney. I want to make that clear to everybody. It's Disney's just following along, or maybe they're the trendsetter in this, but it's happening everywhere. And that maybe not to a large extent on cruise ships, but it's happening there too.
Well, I know even going to restaurants around here and back up in Buffalo when I went to visit, um, kitchens are now getting a tip of $1 or 2 within the bill, and then you still have to tip on that.
Well, I'm not going to mention the name of the restaurant. There is a restaurant off of 192, closer to where the tourist section is,
Mhm.
that several months ago started to add the tip to the bill,
Mhm.
but
An
then left
automatic
space,
20%.
but left space for you on the bill to add the tip as well, and
Yeah.
not tell the guests. And the guests would see it there and go, "Well," they would call it a service charge, not a tip. They called it a service charge, and then guests would say, "Well, what's this for?" "Well, that's the tip. But you could leave more if you want, but you have to leave this." "Well, I don't want to go into a restaurant that's telling me how much I have to leave. If I get good service, I'm leaving a good tip. If I get crappy service, I'm leaving a crappy tip."
Yeah, those restaurants here, even if we were getting carry out, it had a $1 service fee just for doing carry out. And they've taken that away now. But that was basically, it was a tip going to the servers that were working.
I wish we would do what they do in Australia. No tips. You want to raise the price of the entrees, or a couple of dollars to equal what the tip would have, equal the 18-20% what the tip would have been. I'm fine with that. And then don't tip. So you're paying your staff more money, which I think they deserve, and not depend on people, the kindness of people's hearts based on the service they get. Some people won't tip well regardless of how good the service is. Some people will tip well even if they have crappy service. But if you take away the tips and you increase the prices, which is what, there's a debate you could have on either side on that one.
Okay. By the way, I can't even look to see how much Genie Plus costs today. They took that feature out. You have to have a ticket.
Yes, I know.
Well,
You can't see it anymore.
probably not getting good publicity on it. But
Well,
what changes would we see in the park today if either Roy or Walt were around? I think, Darling, you mentioned the alcohol before. I think
Yeah,
you see it in certain parts, but not everywhere.
right. Exactly.
I don't know
Um,
if you'd see it anywhere in Magic Kingdom if Walt were around.
wait, I'm
I
sorry, you're
don't
talking about
think
alcohol?
I don't think
Yeah.
Walt would have ever have allowed it in Magic Kingdom.
I honestly, I think that's one of those changing of the times. I think people have he took that out during the 60s. There was a lot going on then, with a lot of backlash between the war and everything. Well, there was a lot going on, and that's why they okay, that's it, no alcohol in the parks. There's enough education out there now that I think you would see it still only like it is, where it's only in a couple of restaurants. I mean, he had Club 33. It had a separate address. That's how he was able to have it.
Well, you know what I think might have happened? Well, I don't think you'd see Food and Wine the way it's set up right now. I mean, you might see food, maybe a little wine in Epcot, but I think Walt would have limited the number of drinks somebody could purchase a day.
How are you gonna?
Wine. I've seen
How are you
too
gonna
many.
map that though? How are you gonna keep track of that?
You make people pay for the drinks in advance, and you only allow 2, and that's it. and you have to show your, whether it's your phone, your admission ticket, you have something that's recorded on there, so they know you've purchased this already. You can't get any more. And I'm not saying 2 would be the limit. I'm just, throwing a number out there. But I think they would have cut it down. I've seen too many people, when I say people, family, parents of children drunk in the parks during Food and Wine. Way too many.
Right, but then
Years ago, you'd never see that.
this goes back to choice again, though.
Yeah, it
How
does.
do we police what people do or don't do in the parks? And so, we can't limit folks' drinks, but then tell them that this is where they got to be based on, Genie Plus directing their
Well, do you think
traffic.
they would
I
have
mean,
allowed do you think they would have allowed the alcohol to flow in Epcot during Food and Wine the way it does?
Yes.
yeah, I do. Yeah, Epcot, yes. Magic Kingdom, no.
That's why they limit the amount of alcohol available in the Magic Kingdom.
Mhm.
I wish I could get a drink at a Magic Kingdom. That's when you need it.
Skipper's Canteen.
I need a
So
welcome
is it,
window for
The
doors
Plaza
and rum.
restaurant you can as well too. I'm glad you can't walk around with drinks in Magic Kingdom.
you can
I,
at
I
Epcot or Animal Kingdom, can't you?
Animal Kingdom you can, yeah. Hollywood Studios you can, and Epcot. Even Springs you can.
Yes.
Not to change the subject, but something else we have not talked about is the appearance of cast members these days. Now, I know times have changed from the 1950s and 60s. Do you think Walt would have changed or either Roy would have changed with the times? I think the younger Roy would have changed with the times.
I question some of that. There are some people walking around as cast members that I question that my kids are like, Dad, I say it all the time in college. So it's like, oh, okay, but that's a choice. But there's I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah,
there's
I know what you're
just
talking about. The appearance of the cast members don't bother me whatsoever. If they know their job and do their job well, it does
Right.
not bother me whatsoever. For me, it's allowing them to be themselves a little bit more than they used
Right.
to be able to, and I'm fine
Right.
with that. I know it does bother some people. I don't know why it should, but it does. But I don't know if Walt would have eagerly
Well,
changed with the times, but I think the younger Roy definitely.
here's my whole point of all of that, though, is when I'm saying you're going to upset some other people. I'm not even trying to make it political, but like, if you got someone walking around that's only supposed to have a couple of tattoos, that's what their new regulations are, and they've got a whole sleeve on their arm, you're going to have someone of that older generation be like, why are they working here? That's what I mean by that. So you're going to basically be upsetting some of that older generation.
I
You're
didn't
going to,
know.
come on, Gramps, you got to roll with the time.
I didn't actually
Yeah.
realize that the
Mm.
tattoo showing had changed that much, because a friend of mine that works there said you can only show like one tattoo. You couldn't show like
Oh,
a
I've
whole
seen
sleeve.
I've seen 3 tattoos on a person's arm. Again, I could care less.
Really?
Yeah,
Hmm.
I could care less. But they're supposed to have a sleeve on, and so that maybe the sleeve comes down to their elbow. However, it's getting hot in the summertime, so they roll those sleeves up. Oh, hey, that one tattoo just became 3 tattoos
You
that
know
are
what?
all kind of showing
The
up.
only
It's not a full
time
sleeve, but
the only time I'll notice a cast member that might not conform to what the regulation should be is if they're not doing their job properly. If they're doing their
correct.
job properly, I don't even notice them. I don't care
I
what they're
think
wearing.
they
I don't
now
care what
you're
body
allowed to
parts they
have a
have
beard,
covered.
but it still has to be trimmed. So you're not going to have someone with a beard that's like looks like one of the 7 dwarfs.
ZZ Top.
The ZZ Top beard, correct? That's still not allowed. So as long as it's kept up, that's fine. I personally don't want to see someone that literally looks like they just rolled out of bed. and now they're trying to serve me.
You know what?
So this-
I don't care if they're doing their job. Well, I don't care.
this
But
one's a difficult conversation
yeah,
for
but you know
me.
what? It's not what we
Specifically,
think. It's not what we think. It's what we think either Roy or Walt would have allowed.
That's my
and done.
point, though. That's why I'm saying that, though.
Mhm.
If you got someone that he can't even keep his eyes open, he's doing his job, but he's doing a good job with his job. I'm talking about there's certain places where you're working that if you're not paying attention to what you're doing,
Yeah.
somebody's going to
I
get
agree.
hurt.
Yep. I
And
agree.
that's what I mean by that.
Yeah.
It's like, is this safe? I know what to do, but if someone else doesn't know what to do,
Well, if it's a
is
ride
that safe?
operator, they
That's what I
better
mean.
be alert. You know, everybody's allowed to have a bad day. We all do.
Oh yeah, we all
Or
have them.
days even. But when you show up to work, even if you're having a bad day, you still have to try to make the best of it. And you have to tune everything else in your life out while you're working. And sometimes it's not so easy. And, you know, especially I think with the younger generations, it's a little more, for whatever reason, it's a little more difficult than it was for, you know, people in my age group or younger, somewhat younger.
Mm.
I don't know. It's while I think customers should be allowed to have the freedom of choice in their appearance, I know there are people that don't agree with that. But you know, the question was, you know, of Walt, Royo, and Roy, what do you think they would do? I think Walt. I think it's pretty obvious he would have had a uniform code
Yes.
Mhm.
or a what do you call those policies? Appearance policy.
Yeah, they definitely had an appearance policy for a long time.
And I think the younger Roy probably would have been a little more lenient, but we don't know. They're not here to tell us. And that's why this whole show is just, you know, maybe could have been, might have, but we don't know.
Speculation.
Yeah, all speculation.
I've
I
met
do know
Roy.
things would be different in many areas, but how? Our guess
Yeah.
is as good as anyone's.
Yeah, I met Roy E. So
Was he nice to you?
he was polite. You know, he's okay, but I don't know if he was quite as laid back as you think he is.
Mm.
So I'm just saying. Otherwise, he wouldn't have tried to. I mean, he wanted the ship changed way too many times for way too many little things. There were times where he's like, "Turn this around now." Like, let it ride out. There's only some, you know, certain things he didn't like that actually turned out okay.
Mhm.
So he was a nice guy. Like I said, it was polite.
All right, you know, as far as park attractions go, is there anything that's in the park now that you don't believe would be there if Walt or the Roys were around? If they were, I'm sorry, wouldn't be there if they were still around? I think that's hard to say. I think they would have welcomed change. I think they would have pushed for change, but would they have gone in different directions?
They might have questions why some of the attractions are still in the park.
Yep.
And they haven't gone away and brought new stuff in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone here loves Carousel of Progress, but I think Walt would say, "Why is this here still? This is from the '63 World Fair. We
Hey,
gotta
don't
update
touch
this, do
carousel.
something with it." So I love that attraction.
Yeah, me
But
too.
Me too.
Walt would be like, "Isn't there something new we can do in this location?"
Well,
So
they have
I don't think we'd
updated
still.
the unseen. So
I don't think we
Mhm.
would still have an open area where Stitcher's Great Escape was. I think that would
Oh,
have
yeah,
already been
no.
fixed.
Yeah.
no. We've
I
talked
think if
about
something
those.
if something shut down with Walt or one of the Roys, well, not, I don't know about the Roys, but with Walt in charge, I think it would have been like, if you're shutting this down, you better have something ready to go in there to build to take its place.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, you know how long it took to make the Haunted Mansion at Disneyland?
Yeah, I know.
that shell went up. It was 10 years before the attraction opened.
Yep. But you know what? I think he would be okay with something like that as long as they had a project they knew was going into that they knew would be going into that space.
So, well, where they built it, it was basically, I don't know if there was anything there at the time. So, and they changed it from a ride through it or from a walk it through attraction to a riding attraction, and the whole story changed how many times?
You know what else I think we'd see a lot more of if Walt or the Roys were around? These street characters, like Streetmosphere. I
Oh,
think
yeah.
you'd see more of that, not just in Hollywood studios. I think you'd see a lot more of that in the Magic Kingdom. I think you'd see some, a little bit more of that in Epcot. I think you'd see it in every park. I think you'd see things in Animal Kingdom that we don't see right now, that they don't have. I think there'd be a lot more street performers throughout each and every park. I think Disney Springs might be a bit different than it is now. And how, I don't know, but I do think it would be a little more different. I think it would be more. It would be open to the public, but more controlled in terms of what they allowed in there, and not high end. And I don't know if there would be as much high end retail there as opposed to something else. But what that something else is, I couldn't even think to guess.
Do you think every attraction would end in a gift shop if Walt and Roy were still alive?
No, I think very few would. Well, let me take that back. I think if Walt were still alive, very few would. I think they'd have separate shops for different things. With either Roy, I'm not so sure. I don't know. That's a tough one.
They used to have separate merchandise in all the shops too.
Yeah. Yep.
You used to, again, you were looking for something pirate related, you had to go over by Pirates of the Caribbean.
Mhm.
You know what?
They've kind of gotten back to that. I noticed that when I was doing some shopping during my Christmas stay, that things are more relevant in certain areas. Has anybody been in the new Tron store?
The last year when it was opened, yes.
Yeah, I haven't been in it. I was just wondering.
It sells, shocker, it sells Tron stuff.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, that
Just
is good.
Tron. That's
So
good.
there's a lot of stuff that's also it's the back half of that Future World thing. So you still have a lot of there's a lot of cases for your phones are in there. They have, but in the back half they've got a couple different things you can do. I know there's like an $80 or $90 it is a Tron figure. They have radio control Tron things.
I don't mind that there's a gift shop in many attractions when you it's the attraction, but what I'd like to see are gift shops where if you don't buy it in that store at that time, and it's items that are based on that attraction, you're not going to find it anywhere else. So it's either get it then or don't get it ever.
Exactly.
I think that would create maybe more of a revenue flow for Disney. Because I think people would know if word got out and people knew if you don't get it then, you're not going to be able to get it anywhere else. I think it might cause people to do a little more impulse buying.
Part of the problem with that though is, see if I can pull this down. I have up here, it's a very big minifig. Okay. So it's a pop fig that's Mickey with the castle. It's about this big. So it's about 18 inches tall, a foot square around, or 8 inches around, or whatever. If that was only available in one area, do you know how hard that is to carry around throughout the entire park? So that's where something like that was nice to have in multiple locations.
If you're staying on property, you could have, if I don't know if they're still doing it or if that came back.
Not if you need 48 hours. So if you're only there for 3 days, it's not going to work.
Okay.
If you buy it on the
Yeah, you
second
just
day.
ship it home and do it. You just ship it home.
Yeah.
You have them
Yeah.
ship it to the house. You don't even take it back to the hotel.
Or you know what? If you
Correct.
don't buy it at the store, you know, if you change your mind when you, or and let's say I'm not sure if I want it, then you change your mind. Oh, I really want that. If you can't get back to that store to get it, then maybe you
Correct.
have the option of where you can go online and purchase it to have it shipped home to you.
A
Even
lot
after
of
you've
a
gotten
lot of
home from the store.
specialty items are not on the Disney Store website.
I know.
Yeah.
Correct. So I
Yeah.
also have it's a regular pop minifig of Figment. And when I saw it, I bought it. And I bought it in the morning. I'm like, I'm just going to buy it now because it's here and we're walking through. We walked through there in the afternoon, and I'm talking, there was an entire wall full of these things. And this was when they first opened at 10 is when I bought it. At that afternoon, closer to dinner time, I went back and I'm like, where's all the minifigs? All the pop figures. And they're
Mhm.
like, oh, we sold out of those by about 1 o'clock this afternoon. There you go. Tiana. Same thing. If you didn't buy it when you saw it, you weren't going to get it. So I
Right.
have,
Mhm.
And you know, I like
I
that concept.
yeah, I have a little orange bird. I had to buy off of. I think I paid $30 for it off of a certain web page because I wasn't down there, and by the time I got down there, it wasn't going to be available. So instead of getting it for $12.99, I ended up paying $30. I think it was $35 with shipping and handling.
You know what? That's why I think, you know.
Capitalism.
Yeah, go ahead,
Yeah.
Lonnie.
So
Capitalism.
yeah, capitalism.
Oh, yeah.
We control where and how people can buy things, and then you still don't get it because some jerk has purchased 2 or 3 of them, and is selling them on
Yep.
eBay 15
Right.
minutes later.
Well, that's why I'm glad Disney's put limitations on certain items.
They are, yes. I've
Yeah,
heard
I'm
that
glad
even
they've done
from
that.
a
That's a
few
good
of my
thing they've done.
friends. Yeah.
So the arts is in right. The Festival of Arts is happening right now.
Farts.
Yes, the Festival of Arts. So I talked to my sister. I'm like, my sister wanted one of those, the Figment, where it's the Figment popcorn bucket that actually looks like the Imagination Pavilion. Yeah, but I'm going to go over there and it's just not going to be there. I'm like, Kathy, get up and go. She lives an hour and a half away. I go, just go. If it's not there, walk around, eat something, go home. You have an annual pass, use it. She went there. They had 2 of. She was able to get 2 of them. She got one for her and one for me. She goes, "It looks so cool. I had to get you one." I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool, thank you." She when she was carrying it out and she was on the tram, she was sitting in the back. The guy at the tram goes, "When did you get that?" She goes, "First thing this morning." She goes, "They were out by 2." So they're only limiting how many come out every day, so they don't blow through them all in 3 days.
Yeah.
And if you don't get it early, you're not going to get it. So
You know-
things like that, I can see Walt and Roy saying, that's how we got to do it.
Yeah. And you know what? I don't have a problem if they would put anything they're selling in the parks online based on availability and even limit it to 1 or 2 per person or per household. So if you go to the parks, you see something, it's like, oh, I should have bought that and I didn't. You still have a second chance when you get home.
Yep.
But I don't want to see it in every single store.
There is a way that you can actually, not for something like that, not for that specific thing, but there is a way where you can actually find, like, oh, I wanted to get this pin and I couldn't find it. Well, they'll give you the merchandise number, call merchandise, explain where it was at. If there's any available, they can get it for you. That also being said, I visited a certain store that's like a resale. It's an antique mall that's down there. And they actually had in stock, and I should have bought one. It's the Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. Mr. Toad riding around in his old car. There was a popcorn bucket for $20. $20.
See, yeah,
And I'm like,
another thing.
no, I'm not going to
Disney.
get it.
That's
should've
another thing
bought it.
I don't get. You know, and don't get me wrong, some of these popcorn, I have one hiding back here, a Star Wars one. these popcorn buckets that are, they're phenomenal, but Disney has created something out of nothing there, which I think is great. Don't get me wrong,
Right.
but I don't get it. I don't understand why people collect.
It's well, and then my sister was explaining it to someone, and they're like, they said the same thing. They're like, I don't know what the phenomenon is, and she goes, well, they're highly collectible, and she pulled it up on a certain online bidding place, and it literally was $70 for these things, and they cost $30. So, and it was going up. It just kept going up in price. She said,
You know what? If I know the site you're talking about, and the problem with that site is someone will go, and if Disney doesn't limit the items that people can get, they'll buy them all up, create a demand for it, put it on that site, and go, hey, you want one? And I know you really want one bad because you're a big Disney fan and you got to have it. We're going to triple the price. We're going to double the price.
Yeah.
Pay for it.
they do that with the pins. They go to the outlet store, they get the pins for $1.50 instead of the $12, and they
Yep.
sell them for $20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna bow out, guys. I'll see you Thursday.
Have a good night, Darlene. I know you have to get up
Bye,
early
Darlene.
tomorrow. Good night.
Good night.
Yeah, this show's going a lot longer than I thought it would.
Well, we're rambling about things that we think would be different or what has changed through the years.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily just what Walt would think. It's what are people that have been going there forever thinking.
Mhm.
And there are a lot of things that really have changed. I mean, when I first started going there in 72, you didn't wait in line to go and see the characters. They were walking around.
And something else, that I just thought of. Do you think Frontierland makes sense in today's world?
Yeah.
And I don't mean Disney World. I
There's
mean
still
in
a frontier,
today's society.
but it's still I mean, think about it. Back in the 80s that became popular again. There were a lot of cowboy movies that were made, and
Yeah.
they kind of went away and it went to the future, and then it went back to fantasy, and then it's over to you watch within the next 5 years, you're going to see another cowboy rodeo or not Western that you're going to see come back again.
And
So it goes like this. There's going to be another Pirates movie.
And we were talking about attractions before, and one of them happens to be in Frontierland. And I think it could be on its last version if it doesn't do well. And that's, I know it's your favorite, one of your favorites, Kurt, Country Bear Jamboree. If the new version, when it reopens, doesn't
see what it does,
become a hit, that could be it for it.
That got too politically correct. It lost its charm. It just became too politically correct, and it was so chopped up that you had the traditionalists that like to see it like when it a long time ago. That they're like, okay, I can't see this anymore because it's too botched up. And then the new people, it was so chopped up they didn't get it. Yeah. It was just a little too choppy. So they really needed to do something with it. And the way they're changing it, hey, fine, as long as they keep it. I mean, it's a vaudeville show. If they keep it that vaudeville show style and continue with it, awesome.
Yeah.
And Big Al still singing, that's fine.
There's that saying, you've got to give the people what they want. And that's what they're trying to do with Country Bear Jamboree. And I hope it works. Anything else that we haven't talked about or touched upon? I know we didn't get into everything, but we probably don't have enough time to get into everything.
No, I think there would still be merchandise. I think the food wouldn't quite be as expensive as it is. Part of the thing that some things that ticked me off was when they raised the price of the food, but then they took away. I mean, they didn't need. They raised the price of the food and they gave you a little bit more. It's like, I don't need this much food. Okay, well, we're going to take some of that food away, so you're not quite getting this large of a portion, but we're still raising the price.
I don't know. I don't necessarily agree with you about the price of the food. I think I think because they're paying more for the food because they're being charged more for the food, even though it's in bulk. I think they would still pass the increase down to the guests. So I don't know how much cheaper it possibly could be.
They said they didn't need to raise the price of the food. They did it because they could.
I didn't hear that, but okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. That was in one of the reports. They're like, is it related? Is it directly related to the price of food going on? They're like, oh, no, we don't have a supply chain issue. We raised the price of the food because That was a couple of years ago. That was before Iger came back.
I think park tickets would be less than they are. I don't think we'd see Genie Plus. I think we'd still see a lot of technology being used in the parks because you know what? I like to walk around and notice things around me, but there are a lot of guests that don't because they're used to, this. I'm holding my phone up in my
Staring
hand.
at their phone.
Right.
I think we would still see a lot of technology. I think we might see Fast Pass or Genie Plus type of things. However, I think it would be used in such a way that it would be manageable for people that aren't using it.
Yeah. Since it's come up a lot tonight, what do you think Disney, and I know this is not part of the show, but I do want to bring this up. Do you have any idea or suggestion for Disney on how they could make Genie Plus more manageable? Either one of you.
Attractions like Toy Story Midway Mania. Okay, you want to use Genie Plus? This theater is your theater. The other theater, alternate maybe. 2 theaters for Genie Plus, 1 theater for not Genie Plus, or vice versa, depending on how the long lines are going. Same thing with Soarin'. Spread it out so it's not all one going to the same line.
Do you think they'll ever get to the point where I think they're doing it in Disneyland Paris, where you're paying per ride? Extra, if you want to cut the line.
ABCDE ticket. I mean, that's what they used to happen.
I could see them doing something more affordable. I could see them taking like the top third of their attractions at some point in the future. Say, hey, you know what? We can make more money doing it this way rather than selling Genie Plus and just make them pay per ride.
If they're going to make them pay per ride, they're going to have to lower the base ticket of the ticket. Because if you're paying $120, $110 for a 5-day ticket, you're paying $110 per day, and now you're going to make me pay per ride on top of that also. That's going to be $200 a day to ride the attractions. You just priced out 80% of your
even more people.
Family.
I don't think they care. As long as they're getting people in the parks that will pay for it, I don't think they care.
But I think that would price too many people out.
I think they've already priced a lot of people out. You know what? They've priced a lot of people out, and the parks are still busy. And they're still making money. And until their flow of cash comes to a stop, I think they're going to continue to try to make as much money as they can any way they can. And it sucks for some people or a lot of people. But it's, and they're going to say, well, we're bringing this to the parks, we're doing this, and they're going to justify it. And I think one of the problems Disney's had over the last, I'm going to go back and say 40 years, they've gotten too big. They've gotten into things that maybe they shouldn't have gotten into. I think Star Wars and Marvel were good purchases. I think it's an investment that and that might be cyclical too, but they'll reap rewards for that now. And, they have, and they will continue to. They'll have some tough times with it, but I think there are certain things they've got to get out of, like TV. When I say TV, I mean like the cable networks.
ESPN.
It's like build your streaming up, but get out of the TV market, the live TV market. Yeah, well, ESPN's making them money because of the sports, but how long is that going to last?
Well, they're not. They're part of the problem is they bid for NBA.
Yep.
Right after they did that bid where it was billions and billions of dollars for it, on top of having to pay millions and millions of dollars for all their people that are on the shows, all of a sudden, the advertising didn't come in for the basketball game.
And that's another problem we haven't talked about tonight, and that's the problem everywhere. There's only so much ad revenue to go around, and with all these different streaming services you have out there now, and cable TV and local TV or over the air, in the internet and every place else, the companies that are selling their products have to pick and choose where they're putting their money, and there's so much to choose from now. It's not everybody's going to be able to get that ad revenue.
Well, part of the problem also when you're talking to the parks, it's Coca-Cola is the exclusive sponsor of Walt Disney World and gives them all the Coca-Cola products at a decent price. However, Country Bear Jamboree was originally sponsored by Pepsi Cola.
Yep.
So same thing. You've got Kodak, sponsor of the Imagination Pavilion. They couldn't do a Fuji Mountain over in Japan because Kodak's the exclusive. So, and then when all that money disappeared, now there's no sponsor. That's how Epcot got built, is sponsorship money.
Okay,
There's
we're
not a
over
lot of
2
sponsorships.
hours. I'm sorry, we're over 2 hours now. We're gonna have to stop right here. If we, as far as I know, it's all being recorded.
I think we can be done. So
yeah, we're gonna have
Disney,
to be done. I know we had more to talk about. We'll save it for another time and another place. I hope you guys stuck with us throughout this whole show. I hope you enjoyed it.
or had a good nap.
And we'll be back later in the week with another show. We'll do a lighter topic. So until then, everybody, be safe, be yourself. Bye-bye.
Good night, everybody.
See you real soon.